Hey guys, and welcome to our third podcast with Just Hospitality and Simon and Victoria. Victoria and I have just been speaking, and we're completely and utterly blown away by the level of response we've had so far. This is just our way of two mates getting out there and having a chat about the business and various key things that go on in our beloved sector, and just putting it out there. Getting loads of responses, loads of feedback. We're getting subscribers on YouTube and all sorts of stuff, and it's lovely. And thank you very much for that. I find it very encouraging. It makes us want to carry on. You know, it's very uncomfortable sat staring at a camera and talking for half an hour every Tuesday afternoon. But if the feedback is that people want to hear what we've got to say and it's resonating and landing and hopefully helping the sector in some way, then it's certainly worth doing. So thank you very much, and keep on going. Hit the likes and the shares, and feel free to share it with whoever you want. There's nothing commercial or anything confidential in these podcasts, so please feel free to share it. Today we wanted to take a slightly different track, and we wanted to talk about something slightly more commercial. We've spent a couple of weeks talking about the recruitment crisis, how to recruit, how to retain people within the business. And now we wanted to talk a little bit broader. The subject we've chosen to speak about today is called the balanced triangle. And the balanced triangle is an extremely simple concept, but like most simple concepts, it so easily gets forgotten. And all it is the balance within the three key stakeholders of any business. Now, we're going to focus on hospitality, but this is actually applicable, if you think about it, to any business on the planet. And the three key stakeholders are your customers, your employees, and your shareholders, without whom, any of which, you've got a lot of problems. What tends to happen, like those guys you see at the circus spinning plates, is you're focusing on one or maybe two sides of the triangle. The problem with that is the third gets neglected. And when the third gets neglected, the whole thing collapses. So the key to any business is keeping your key focus on your customers and your staff and on your shareholders. It's different people would argue, Victoria, that, people say staff get forgotten, other shareholders would say they get forgotten, customers might say they get lost in the quest for profits. The essence is, how do you keep that balance? How do you satisfy all three stakeholders at one time? And also, how do you do so at any stage of your business? You know, to me, the really interesting thing about the balanced triangle is it's applicable in any stage of a business's life. Whether you're an independent food truck setting up and launching from the word go with just you and one other team member, whether you're a mid-sized company just taking on some VC and in a massive stage of growth, this is so critical, or if you're an enormous PLC, it's also really key. And you actually see some of these sides drop out, particularly when companies get quite large. My learning over the years is whatever size you are, whatever business it is you're doing in our sector, you must keep the focus. You must really spend a lot of energy on that very simple task of looking at how am I treating and what am I doing today to give value to my customers, to my staff, to my shareholders. So, Victoria, I'm going to hand over to you in a minute. What I'd really think it'd be cool to do is to break down our three shareholders and talk a little bit about how we can focus on each one. So why don't you start us off, if that's all right, by talking about the customers and how are we going to make sure that we continue focusing on customers?
Yeah, of course, Si. Well, first of all, before we jump into that, thanks again, just to really echo what Si's been saying. Thanks to everyone for listening to us and liking, sharing, subscribing to the podcast. We do massively appreciate it. So yes, this week's topic, when Si came to me with this, I thought, you know what, this is a really great way to kind of move into the commercial and away from the people piece, as Si said. And Si mentioned there that this is key kind of when whether you're a startup, whether you're in growth phase, maintenance, and put simply, it is a constant issue, a constant balance, no matter what stage you are at in your business. So as I said, we've got the three core stakeholders who are our customers, our people, and of course our shareholders. So the first one I'm going to talk about is our customers, and how do we make sure that when we're trying to balance this triangle, we're really taking into account what they need and making sure that they are taken care of, they're happy, etc. So the first point I want to make, Si, is to actually talk to the customers. To talk to customers and to encourage your teams who are on the front line to actively talk to them. Now, whether that be on the front line during service now, or whether that be on social media, because obviously there's so much online, our marketing teams ensuring that they're engaging with our customers. The key thing is to speak to them. So you can make those conversations happen in a number of ways. And when you're taking that time to speak with your customers, really make sure that whoever's doing it is genuine. And I've kind of enforced this point on a few of our podcasts, but actually taking a genuine interest will mean the world to the customer, but actually mean the world and make your life a lot easier. So just really talking to them, engaging with them, having conversations, and making sure that you've got a good feedback mechanism side. There's multiple ways to collect feedback from customers. And the key is when you do get that feedback, you actually do something about it. There's the age-old saying, actions speak louder than words, and that's the kind of developed, and it's now what you do is more important than what you say. There's a load of different ways we can say this, but the key is, if you're going to speak to people, if you're going to listen to them, you have to create actions, and you have to make a plan from the back of that feedback. What do you think, Si?
I couldn't agree more. I think, a lot of companies, we're specifically talking about customers here, but a lot of this applies to our teams as well. And I know you're going to talk about that in a moment. A lot of people spend a lot of time and energy talking to their customers and gathering feedback, and whether that's for the benefit of an annual report or to satisfy various shareholders, I don't know. But how do you do it? What do you do with that information, be it from customers or staff? Also, and you mentioned this in our preamble when we were talking before we started recording, how do you do this genuinely? And let's face it, we're in hospitality sector, not the food and beverage sector. We're in hospitality. And to demonstrate true hospitality, it is literally about caring, okay? And caring for your customers. That shows in the tone of voice you use to engage with them, whether that's verbal, face-to-face, or whether that's in written communication, online surveys, people listening groups, whatever you might produce as a company. But unless you genuinely and deeply care about what the customer has to say, there's no point in asking.
No, you're absolutely right, because if you don't deeply care, it's just lip service. You're just doing it for the sake of doing it. And people aren't stupid. Your customers know you're just doing it. Your courtesy check, and not like, I'm a stickler for this. I'm making sure that part way through the meal, go over and check, is everything okay? Now, if you just go over and is everything okay? People know you're just doing that. If you're genuinely interested and want to know, are they enjoying their food? Are their drinks okay? Customers feel that. And I don't like, obviously, these the generation now talk about vibes and vibing and whatever, but genuinely your customers will get the vibe as to whether you actually care or whether you're going through the motions. And to make sure your customers are happy and you've got this part of the triangle balanced, you have to genuinely care. And if you care as a senior member of management and you pass that down through the chain and all of your employees actually care, that will be conveyed to your customers and they will be happier with the service.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. I worked for an organization a few years ago, and we undertook a massive and a very expensive set of listening groups around the country with various customers. And I can't tell you how much we learned. It was incredible. It turned out our perception of our brand didn't match in the slightest our customers' perception of our brand. And it was only through actually giving a shit and really caring about what they had to say and then deep diving with further questioning and further discussion on what that meant, that we could re-navigate and re-look at our business. And it was some very small and minor changes we had to make to satisfy them, but we would not have picked it up unless we deeply cared. So with that in mind, talking of caring, and we're looking at our customers, how do we look after our staff, Victoria?
Well, I mean, this was something we covered in quite a lot of detail last week in terms of progression, welfare, etc., and making sure that your staff feel heard and feel important, etc. And obviously, this is part of the balance triangle, but I don't want to go over too much of what we already covered last week. But I think the key is, again, and I know we might feel like we're repeating ourselves, but it's about listening to your staff and acting on what they say. Again, I mean, you gave the example last week with the turning off and on of the system that you had at different times. Side. And there's a number of ways that you can give your staff a voice, and so that you can actually listen to them. Great. So you've given the example of listening sessions for customers. That's, of course, available with staff. But what you can actually do is you can use your in-house tech to get your staff's instant feedback. So when they're clocking in and clocking out, there's a lot of tech companies, and obviously everyone knows I work for Harry, and I'm not trying to push Harry, but when you clock in and clock out, there's the ability to provide feedback. How was your shift? And they can even give like smiley face options, etc. You can have communications apps, and you can communicate with your staff and ask instantly how are things going, etc. But the key thing is with all of this feedback, again, Si, is to action it.
Use it.
Exactly.
Use it.
I've worked with companies and they'll say to me, oh, we did X, Y, and Z survey with X, Y company and it cost us 50,000 last year to find out how our staff were feeling. And all they've done with it is put it in the AGM or, you know, put it in a shareholders report. And it's like, what are you actually doing? What did you actually spend all of that money for just to write it down? Are you actually going to use those? And let's face it, Si, they're actionable insights. It's real, especially if you've done anonymous ones for your staff. It's real life insights into what your staff are feeling, thinking, going through on a daily basis. You just need to action it. However small that action is, your staff need to feel like you've listened and you've taken action on their feedback.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We had a really simple one a few years ago with another business I was involved in. And a member of the team and this actually ties back to the retention chat last week, but a member of the team said to me, I've been with you 2 years. I train your new starters. Every month, I'm the one I get put buddying with. I have to train them and get them up to speed. So all my experience, you trusted me, all my knowledge of your business that I pass on to our customers on a daily basis and train the new members of staff. I get paid exactly the same hourly rate as that new member of staff. What is the benefit to me of having all that knowledge? And I sat there and I had no answer. I was like, she's absolutely right. So we literally went away. I went away, went to my partners and just sat down and went, we've got to nail this now. We have absolutely to nail it. And I haven't told that story to anyone who would disagree with that young lady who presented me with that problem.
Yeah.
Why should she? So the essence to support your thing was, it wasn't, and we solved it. We solved it within a week, and we had it rolled out within probably about 2.5 weeks, a new system. And what was also the secondary benefit of that, of course, is the team are there going, oh my God, so-and-so said this, they listened, and they've dealt with it. So then you're getting more feedback coming through. You're getting more things. And of course, you can't action everything everybody wants, every customer, every member of staff, but you can take the important points. So I think you're absolutely right. If you're going to listen, do. Otherwise, save yourself that £50,000 a year.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, key thing there, so like you said, you took action, you took steps, you listened to your employee, and that's all employees want at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, so your employees are there, you're paying them a wage. Well, unless there's some sort of incentive or you're invested in them, they're not going to invest in your business to help you make more profit. So that's what I think we all need to take a step back and remember. Yes, our staff are there because they work, in my opinion, they work with us, and we pay them, obviously we pay them a wage. But the important thing is to make sure that they really feel value and invested in, because they will then hold the company in good value and they will invest back in you.
I couldn't agree more. And you're talking about investment a lot now, so I'm going to start talking about the third side of the triangle, which is your shareholder. Mm-hmm. Now, a shareholder might seem a little bit more difficult to manage because you don't see them on a daily basis like you do the team. You don't hear from them on a daily basis. But let's be honest, shareholders in any business are the absolute foundation. Now, you might be a massive PLC where you've got a load of anonymous shareholders or investment banks or whatever it might be who are looking for a return. A shareholder in your business might just be you, who's paid £5,000 for your food truck, and you're out there every weekend at your local car boot sale trying to sell burgers. It doesn't matter. You need a return on the investment. And something that happens a lot, particularly in times where we're trying to be kinder, is people view profit as a dirty word. Mm-hmm. And it's not. And the reason profit isn't a dirty word is because nothing can exist without it. Any decent business invests a lot of its profit back into its team and back into its estate and back into its growth. Without profit, you can't have bonuses. You can't have pay rises. Without profit, you can't have expansion. Without profit, you can't buy new pieces of kit, new uniforms, the things you need. And the shareholders are really investing in that because they're the ones who stumped up their money in the first place to try and get you guys off the ground or growing or expanding or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. They need a return on their investment in order to continue investing. You, if you're an independent owner, need a return in your investment because it's bloody hard work. Working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to set up your own pub, for example, for a matter of years. Why shouldn't you, at some point in the future, receive some financial benefit from it? It's not to be sneered at. We do tend to forget about the needs of shareholders. Now, the number one need of shareholders will always be bottom line. Of course, you deliver a good bottom line on your balance sheet, it makes the shareholders happy. But, you know, you and I were talking, Victoria, and I think you come up with some really good points. The shareholders also want a really nice portfolio. They want a good business to be proud of within their portfolio as they expand their own portfolios and their own investment opportunities. They want to be able to show people their businesses they're investing, and they want to be proud. I wonder how many people communicate regularly with their shareholders, apart from the standard company annual report or the AGMs each year, or for smaller VC firms, maybe a board meeting once a quarter. What's wrong with a small newsletter? We just ping them emails saying, hey, we're about to open this site. Would you like to come down and have a look? I haven't yet met anonymous money banks who just like to throw money into businesses. They want to be involved. They need to be involved. And in many respects, they need to be treated with as much care and resilience as we do our employees, because essentially they're just another key shareholder in the business. Yeah. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, you said obviously that the shareholders are worried about their bottom line, which of course they are. So the main reason they've invested money into your business is to get that money back and to get a dividend, a return on that money. But I just want to pick up on the point of they want a business they can be proud of. So no shareholder just wants an annual statement from all of their 10 investments every year. Just say, okay, that one made me that much, that one made me that much. Okay, brilliant. Puts a little smile on my face, made a few pounds or whatever. But what would really change those shareholders' world is to actually feel like they're involved and to actually know what is happening in the business. Now, I'm not telling you to tell them the ins and outs of who was in on this shift, who didn't turn up, what's gone wrong in this restaurant today, etc., etc. But just communicate good, positive news. Like you said, a potential newsletter, communicate the small things. Send it out once a quarter. This is what's happening. This is where we're going. This is where we're moving. Rather than them having just to wait for that annual statement with facts and figures on, actually get them to invest into your business. Because if they've not only got money invested, but they can then invest their time and understand about the business, they'll potentially want to invest more money. And the more interest they've got in the business and the prouder they can be of the business, the more they'll talk about it amongst their circles and the more you can potentially get additional shareholders. One other thing I do want to add, you mentioned giving them a business to be proud of and inviting them along. Hold shareholder events. Even if you've just got that one shareholder, invite them along. This is an evening just for you. We want you to try our new dish that's going to make you money. Or if you've got multiple shareholders, you're more than welcome to come to X branch if you can obviously get there. And this is what we're going to have on for the evening. I don't know, on a Monday night, for example, it's notoriously quiet. Just invite them in. They'll come along, have something sweet. They can see what's happening, where their money's being spent. Maybe not the best idea if you've been spending it on the wrong things. But they can really they're really kind of invested and buying more and more into your business the more they know about it and the more they spend time in it.
Yeah, I agree, Victoria. And just to wrap that last shareholder point, I want to reiterate that for single shareholders, i.e. somebody who owns their own business, the small businesses and the up-and-coming businesses, don't neglect yourself. You are a shareholder in this business. You're an investor in your business, whether that's financial or just oodles of your own time. You must seek to find a reward for that business. Profit and growth are not dirty words. And this does not apply simply to large businesses. So to wrap in many respects, the three things we've talked about today, we have a balanced triangle, which is, I'm sure there'll be people who look at this going, hey, the lecture is on something so simple. If it was so simple, it would happen all the time. And the point is it doesn't. Otherwise, I don't think I'd feel the need to highlight it. I think what we're talking about here is maintaining an equal closeness and an equal focus on your customers, on your team members, and on your shareholders. Because if any of these three get neglected, we're done. Your business is done. It will never survive. So that's the wrap up. Victoria and I always have this thing where we like to give you little tasks. Not sure how many people do them. I get a bit of feedback, but hey, it's three things to think about when you leave here after you've listened to the podcast, either alone or with your team. Victoria?
Yeah. I mean, we do this every week, Si, and it's really just so that you guys kind of at the end say, right, okay, this is my action. This is what I need to do based on the 20 minutes or however long this podcast is that I've just invested with these guys. So the first one for this week, we want you to go away and list down what you are currently doing positively for your three individual stakeholders. So what are you positively doing for your customers? What are you positively doing for your staff? And then what are you positively doing for your shareholders? And like I always say, and it's almost like I try to get people to search their souls, but genuinely ask yourself, dig deep and be honest. Are you listening to your employees? If you're not, don't put that down on the positive things that you're doing on the list. And hopefully you'll get three lists of everything you're doing for those three stakeholders. And then point number 2 is that will help you to identify which stakeholder you're currently not giving enough attention to. So if you've got a list of 10 positives, 5 positives, 15 positives, okay, the number 5, my staff is the one that I'm least giving the least attention to. I need to work on an action plan to rectify this and create that action plan, no matter what it is. Even if it's you're just going to go into one of your stores and ask some questions, get some feedback, and then act on that feedback. And then number 3, so I'm going to hand back over to you.
Okay. 3, I think, is about looking a little bit more long term. Anyone can manage any business when the seas are nice and calm and flat. But the reality of life is that every now and again, businesses hit crisis. If we were to look at the last 18 months, I think it's a great example of all sectors, particularly hospitality, being in crisis. So my request is that you have a look and you have a deep think, really, about how will you manage all 3 shareholders in a time of crisis? What would you do differently to a normal time? So when the pandemic hit, if you're looking at the balanced triangle, what do? You can't get customers in the door anymore because they're not allowed. You're having to furlough your team. Your shareholders are getting 0 return because there's no money coming through the door. So how do you focus at a time of crisis? What do you do differently to what you do in normality? The reason for this third one, I know it's a bit more abstract than Victoria's too, is simply you know, to plan, to think ahead, to get our brains working further and beyond today, because ultimately hospitality has been around thousands of years. It's going to be around thousands of years longer. And it didn't do so by us only thinking about tomorrow. We've got to think about next year and the what ifs. So that's it. That's us wrapped on the balance triangle. I think we're going to do another one next week, which is going to be a lot of fun. And we'll announce that later in the week. But from my side, thank you very, very much again for all your engagement. Thank you for listening and just being part of this with us. And thank you for being part of this amazing sector we call hospitality.
Thanks, Si. Thanks, everyone.